Hello YouTube, this is Satsu5 and I'd like to wish you a Merry Christmas. And the main point of this video is to talk about hyper-awareness. Now, the reason why I'm talking about this is because I just got back from San Antonio. Some of you on Instagram might have saw my picture of me at the Alamo. And what you didn't really see was that I did a little bit of bar hopping. I didn't drink a lot, but I was searching for the Vesper Martini. And for those of you who do not know what the Vesper Martini is, I know you've heard of it before, but you probably don't remember the name of it. It's the martini that James Bond orders in all of his movies and books. It was first mentioned in Elam Fleming's book Casino Royale, where James Bond teaches the bartender how to make it, and he names it the Vesper Martini after a double agent that he fell in love with, and is supposedly the only woman he ever loved. And so it's basically, I think, 2 measures of gin, 1 measure of vodka, and Le Blanc, I think is what it's called. It's some kind of sweet wine, I think. And that's the ingredient that's hard to find. And they have some fairly nice bars in San Antonio. I went to, the one in the Marriott has a cocktail lounge. Then there was this other bar. It was established in the 1800s, and Teddy Roosevelt went there. And it's famous because Teddy Roosevelt and I think the Rough Riders went into it and drank there. Well, I don't think Teddy Roosevelt drank there because I think he was a teetotaler, but he went to that bar slash hotel, and they have a little museum inside of it. So I did a little bit of bar hopping, looking for the Vesper Martini, and the 2 places that I went to didn't have it, and the antique bar, the one that Teddy Roosevelt went in, I forget its name, and I can almost imagine the name. It starts with an M, but I can't pronounce it because I'm extremely dyslexic, and reading a weird name on a sign is difficult enough for me, and reading that same name from memory is even more difficult for me. But I went in there and the bartender said, you need to go to Swig's Martini Bar. It's a martini. That's what they specialize in, is martinis. It's like, okay, that's good. And so I punched it into my GPS on my phone and I started walking there. And this whole area that I've been walking, the Riverwalk, the Alamo, is a very tourist populated area. There's a lot of panhandlers there asking for money. But when I was going to this Swig's Martini Lounge, it was taking me to a very unincorporated, dark, and just not very inviting location. It was 10 minutes away from where I was at, and I was walking there, and it was unincorporated. There was construction going on, and the road that I needed to go on that would get me there, the most direct route that I needed to go on was blocked off by construction, and I just didn't feel right. And it's true, I had a 5.5-inch cold steel towel, and had blue Endora. I was armed. I'm pretty proficient at knife defense. I'm not a knife fighter. I've never been in a knife fight, but it is something that I practice. It's something that I know about. It's something that I do study. And I'm confident that I can defend myself with the 5.5-inch cold steel knife, and with the Endura for that matter. But I didn't feel right or safe. Something was off when I was walking in this area, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to go to the Riverwalk and go to Coyote Ugly's for a couple of reasons. One, the Riverwalk in the Coyote Ugly area is very populated with tourists and not just tourists, but the employees that work in the tourist area. Is very populated. It has a lot of people there. So it's not like I'm going to be alone. If something happens, I can yell for help. 2, I know what's at Coyote Ugly. Pretty entertaining time. So it's not like I'm going to be bored. But the whole point behind this story that I'm telling you is that the best self-defense you can have is to not put yourself in a situation that could potentially go wrong. Now, you could say that going to a bar or nightclub is not the safest place to be, but it seemed a lot safer than walking at night to a place that doesn't have a whole lot of people walking around, knowing that the area before then had people begging for money. Um, I had a really weird feeling. I don't know if you ever seen this when you go deer hunting, but sometimes you'll see a deer and they'll just step out of the woods and they'll stop for a second and then they'll take a couple more steps and they'll look around and then they they stand there, take another step, and then they just run off. They have some kind of feeling inside them that kind of it's like a spidey sense that tells them that this is not a safe place to be. So that's what I was getting. I was getting that spidey sense. And the best self defense you can have is to not put yourself in a compromised situation. So I decided to go where there was people, go where I can yell for help, go where if I need it, if I was going to defend myself, there'll be witnesses to say that this guy's legitimately defending himself. Um, so that's the whole point behind this. And if you think of it from a rational point of view, you can say, well, there's more homeless people or more panhandlers in the tourist part of town than there is in the unincorporated parts of town. But at the same time, I just didn't feel safe. I didn't like where it was going. I was getting 10 minutes away from, where there was a lot of people and there was construction. And I don't know if this area that I'm going to is the red light district. I don't know San Antonio that well. I don't know what the drug scene is there, if that's where people go to get drugs. Of course, you can probably score drugs at any nightclub on the Riverwalk or what have you. But I just perceived it to be a very dangerous situation, and I didn't want to get in a bad situation. I didn't want to have to use my knife if I can avoid it. So I decided to go to the Riverwalk where it was highly populated and I felt safer. I wasn't by myself. So that's what I did, and that's the whole point of this video. Is some of the safest people in the world are the elderly people who that are house ridden. There's always that chance that someone can break into their house and murder them in their sleep. But not homeless, but elderly people, they don't go to a lot of dangerous places, and they don't go out in the middle of the night, dark alleys, dark parking lots and stuff like that. They don't go to the ATM at night. So, statistically speaking, they're pretty safe. Not to mention that a lot of the elderly people around here in Texas, they carry a gun or they have a gun in the house. So, that's the whole point of this video. I'm probably rambling right now, but just hyper awareness. Don't just be aware that, hey, I'm in a particular location, but be aware of the potential situations and events that may or may not happen. Even if it's not necessarily rational, as far as there's more panhandlers in the tourist part of town. But if you have a bad feeling, trust that feeling. The feeling might not be rational, but it could save your life. I compare it to snakes. That a lot of people have a fear of snakes, including myself. I don't know I know a few. I can identify a few different snakes, but if I don't recognize a snake, I'm going to assume that it's poisonous, and I'm not going to jack with it or try to catch it or anything. I'm going to stay away from it. If you get a bad feeling about a snake and you think it's poisonous, then don't jack with it. Same thing with when you're walking around town and it's in any town, if it's at your hometown or if you're vacationing, if you have a bad feeling about a certain location in town, even though it is unrational, it's not necessarily because you know that town is a bad part of town, but if you just have a bad feeling that this could potentially be a bad situation, then don't be in that situation. So that's the best advice I can give you. And that's it. Hope y'all have a great day. By the way, I never found the Vesper Martini in San Antonio. I'm kind of disappointed about that. But I did have some of the best Cuba Libres that I ever had at Coyote Uglies, and they didn't even know what it was. I had to explain it to them, but they mixed it good. So, all right, there was one more thing I wanted to add in before ending the video, and that is talking about the rape culture in college, or I guess you could say high school as well. Um, um, the age where people start drinking. Um, and in no way, shape, form, or fashion am I saying that the girls who suffer from this are asking for it, because that's not the case. And I firmly believe the men who are doing this should be convicted and have the book thrown at them. That's my belief. But we need to remember we're talking about hyper awareness, not just knowing, hey, I'm at a party and being aware that you're at a party, but being hyper aware of the situation that you're in. If you're a young woman um, and you weigh about, let's just say, 120, 135 pounds, um, you need to take into consideration the people that you're hanging out with. If there's a bunch of men there that you do not know, and more especially, there's not a whole lot of people there, it's a strange party, you just show up, you probably don't need to be drinking too much. I'm not saying that you can't drink, but just limit yourself and just be aware of the situation that you're in. Again, I'm not saying that you're asking for anything, and I'm not saying the men who are doing this kind of thing are innocent. They're bad people. They should be convicted, have their asses handed to them. But just be aware of the situation that you're in. If you're at a situation like a party situation, a gathering, bonfire, what have you, and you don't have a whole lot of friends to take care of you, watch you, um, and there's a lot of guys there that you don't know, don't get blackout drunk. Don't drink a lot, limit yourself, and just be vigilant of yourself, your relationship with other people. And when I say relationship, that doesn't mean that you have a romantic relationship with them. I'm talking about a relationship between two, three, or four objects or people. Um, um, Keep in mind your relationship you have with the people around you. Is it a friendly relationship? Is it a family relationship? Is the relationship so new that you don't know the people that you're hanging out with? So be very, very sure who you're hanging out with, and if when in doubt, don't drink, or don't drink as much. Just be hyper aware of the situation that you're in, and be sure to guard yourself. And um, this should have nothing to do with how you dress or anything like that. Um, just make sure to keep into consideration the strangers around you, the familiar faces you have around you, the friends, family, strangers. Keep that in mind and act accordingly. So I wanted to add that as well. I'm a Satsu 5. I'm out.